In today's video, we're going to be talking about some Pokemon leaks, and then we're going to be talking about Pokemon cards that I am looking to buy right now. Now, to start it off, we're going to start off with the news with the leaks. Now, these are actually badges from a Latin America Gamescom event, and they show it's in Portuguese, but these are supposed to be the pack arts that we're going to get for Destined Rivals. And I think it's extremely interesting because, recently we talked that they're sharing, the two sets are being combined, and I was a little bit worried that we weren't going to get Team Rocket featured too heavily. However, obviously we got Giovanni and Mewtwo. This is supposed to be one. I'm not sure how the pack art's going to work here. I would assume it's going to be this background here, this blurry background, and then it's going to say the, Destined Rivals and be obviously a little bit skinnier than this, but this is going to be the artwork that we get with Giovanni. Then you got the Team Rocket. Here you got the higher ups. Here you got the grunts, Arbok, Coughing, Rattata. So Team Rocket being featured is something for nostalgia that I really wanted. And then apparently looks like we might get just packs that just have the R on them, which I do think that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted just that black box with the R on it. So it looks like potentially we're going to get that as well. And then on the other side, you got the Cynthia with the Garchomp and the Ethan with the Ho-Oh. So it's kind of like they're battling these two, Team Rocket versus the good guys, kind of in this set. So this is what we've seen for the leaked pack art so far. I do think it's very interesting. And it's gotten me, not that I was like that down on it, but it's gotten me a little bit even more excited for that set when we finally get it. May is going to be crazy. Destined Rivals, May for English. So, and we'll know more about the Team Rocket set in the coming weeks and months on the Japanese side. So that'll be very interesting. Now, let's talk about some cards that I have picked up. Now, this is Misty's Gyarados, right? First edition holo. This is a card that I just recently picked up. I did not pick it up in a PSA 10. These are PSA 10 prices shown here. I picked it up in a PSA 9, and it was a little bit of a speculative play, but honestly kind of not really at the same time. So if you're new, for me, if you're new to the channel, Gyarados is my favorite Pokemon, and this was a card that I've always wanted. I loved as a kid. And I wanted to have it in a first edition. The PSA 10s, just a little bit out of my budget. Not that I could have swung it probably, but I thought it was just really pushing it. So I opted for a PSA 9, and then later down the road, I can upgrade to a PSA 10 copy is kind of my plan. But I needed to have these cards because there is a Misty's Gyarados, in that set coming up. So I'm assuming that we might get an illustration rare or an SIR of the Gyarados, and it's one of those cards where I wanted it anyways, so it just was the right time to pick one up, because if we do see a price increase on the vintage side, I will have already secured one. And for vintage cards, PSA 9 is a good grade, so I'm happy to have that. You can see this is the PSA 10 sales, last sales 1,000, around 900, almost 1,200, 930, 995 crossed out, and then this is a non-first edition, just to give you an idea, 450. And before that, you can see back in December, this card was in a PSA 10, 860 and 850. So it has shot up. I would say it's around 1,000 now. Obviously, this person is a much better deal compared to these two, but it kind of went up already based off of, I'm assuming based off of that information that came out about the Misty's Gyarados. So looks like the card's already come up a little. So that's a card that I just recently picked up. Now we'll jump over to something that I think, is something that I'm looking to pick up more of. As funds allow, you got to understand, these boxes and these cards are very expensive, and I acknowledge that. Like, picking up a Fusion Strike box right now is very expensive, but this is the point. There's so much hectic, and listen to this, pay attention, because I do think that this is important. There's so much craziness happening right now, and a lot of people saying, oh, there's nothing worth buying, everything's overpriced, there's no good investments left. I genuinely believe that when it comes to Sword and Shield era, that there's still some sets and some Scarlet Violet sets that we'll talk about. But I genuinely believe that Fusion Strike is a good pickup. You can see what it's done. Like if we look in the last month, like it's cooled off. It's cooling off. It's cooled off however you want to look at it. You can try and follow it down to the very bottom, but this box has cooled off, and you can see, we're at 450 a box. Back here it was almost at 500. I genuinely believe, especially when you look at it in the context of Evolving Skies, I don't think there is any way in which Evolving Skies doesn't hit 1,500, 2K, 2,500, potentially 3,000 a box in the future, and there's no way in my mind that Fusion Strike doesn't hit 800, possibly 1,000, at least somewhere in that range. So I genuinely believe that Fusion Strike, the way that the Sword and Shield era is regarded amongst collectors and investors, I think that these are really good pickups. And you can see, it came down to on this chart 448, and now it's come up just a little. And you can see lowest listed pricing. If you want to go to a full box from a starred seller, lowest is 465, which would indicate that it might start moving back up potentially. Now that doesn't mean it can't ebb and flow back up and come back down a little bit, because this growth was very accelerated, very rapid. 243 up to around 500 happened very quick. So it makes sense that they're going to retrace a little, cool off a little. They could just be cooling off for a big run. They could be just cooling off for a while. They could cool off for a long period of time. But I genuinely believe if you're on a long time frame, 5 to 10 plus years, that these boxes are definitely going to be worth way more in the future. So Fusion Strike is another one that if I can shuffle funds around, I want to pick up some more Fusion Strike. Hopefully, I'm going to be attending the LA Collecticon coming up shortly. So I think that might be a good in-person kind of pickup potentially. Something like that, Fusion Strike. There also was another card that I picked up. Kind of the same thing, although we don't... With it getting a Misty's Gyarados, I don't think we're going to get a Giovanni's Gyarados. However, once again, this was just a card I wanted for my collection already regardless. So a little bit of a speculative play. You can see though, so this is Giovanni's Gyarados, first edition in a PSA 10. Once again, I picked up a PSA 9 first edition. Just because of the price difference, I was able to get, both of those cards for a much more affordable price. And for the vintage side, for right now, your collection goals change, but part of why I even got into investing was because how expensive these vintage cards are. It was because I didn't, these prices, while these are a lot more affordable than some of the bigger Grail cards, I didn't want to spend $1,800 on Giovanni's Gyarados. So, that's what led me to the sealed investing. If I could spend a few $100s and then eventually over time sell those boxes and be able to afford the cards that I want. So eventually I'll be aiming for a PSA 10. That really is the goal. But you can see last solds down here in December. This was a $1,000 card. And then, fast forward to pretty much to February, 1,700, 1,200, and 1,800 are the last solds on Giovanni's Gyarados. So, like I said, I don't do speculative plays too much with singles, but this was one where it lined up for me of cards I wanted regardless. So it was a speculative play, like, oh, well, if they go up, then great. I got them at a more affordable price, but I wanted them anyways for my collection. So Misty's Gyarados and Giovanni's Gyarados, first edition holos in a PSA 10. Super cool cards. Vintage gets me in the nostalgia, in the feels every time. So vintage is where I want to get a lot of my slabs at. Not that I don't enjoy modern, but vintage always has a special place for me, especially with those first edition stamps. So picked up 2 Gyarados cards, and then we'll go back to Evolving Skies is the same thing. You're going to hear me say the same thing I just said about Fusion Strike. When you look at these boxes, and once again, you can compare them to Team Up, and Team Up was a different era. Print runs were different. I'm acknowledging that. It's not the same. Team Up wasn't printed the same as Evolving Skies, right? But what you have to understand is that the hype around Evolving Skies, the Moonbryon pretty much being the modern day base set Charizard, the card that everyone wants. Like, kids understand. These young kids understand what the Moonbryon means and how expensive it is. And once again, this set, it's down right now on the 1 month chart. Not a lot, right? I don't know how much Evolving Skies is going to come down compared to the other sets. And in the last 3 months, it did go from 800 to 13, 1400. You can see last solds 1200, 1300, 1300, 1300. Fairly consistent pricing, but it has come down a little. And this is the one that's way more expensive. And I acknowledge, right? But if you can pick up Evolving Skies, this is the safest, most no-brainer. Obviously, make sure you're buying a legit box. There are fakes out there, so do your research. But Evolving Skies is one where I'll give you an example in here in this run up. Like I picked up a box. I paid 1,000. I paid 1,000 for it, and I would continue to buy more even at this price, at 1,300, 1,200, because I genuinely believe in the set long term. I just don't see any scenario in which even with a downturn in the market, after downturns come upswings, come bull markets. After bear markets come bull markets. So once again, it's all under the impression of 5 to 10 plus years down the road, kind of at the minimum for some of these sets. So if you're anywhere in that time frame, I still really believe that these Sword and Shield era boxes, specifically the big ones, and there's a lot to be said for the lesser boxes too. I do believe in the lesser boxes, the Brilliant Stars, the Silver Tempest. I like all those boxes as well. But right now we're talking a little bit more of the no-brainer plays that are available for Sword and Shield era. And like I said, we'll get to some Scarlet Violet towards the end. Last single we're going to talk about. Now this is one I haven't picked up yet, but it's one I want to pick up. Now this is sorry, I do apologize. It's Gyarados heavy. But once again, it just kind of tailors into where I'm at as a collector. This is where I'm at as a collector. The other stuff is for investing, right? But I cannot deny the collector side of me, right? It comes out. I try to suppress it as much as I can, but sometimes you got to pick up those cards. Now, Dark Gyarados, it would be the same thing. First edition holo. Maybe in a 10. You could see the pricing a little bit more affordable in a 10, in the $700 range. But more realistically, and you can see even the very affordable, the celebrations in a 10. But if you wanted to pick up a same artwork but in a cheaper version, the celebrations cards, it's a nice looking card. But more realistically for me, I'm looking to pick this card up in a PSA 9. You can see even back here, it was 500. Let's see how far we have to go. I mean, it looks like it's kind of been around 700. You can see back here, this is just the difference between, this was just a few days, 475 and 700. So it's kind of been around 700 for a while. It doesn't look like it's really taken too big of a jump. So not too much of a speculative play, but this is one that I haven't picked up yet, but I want to pick up. The other ones are at eBay authentication right now, so I don't have those cards in hand. But the Dark Gyarados is another one I'm potentially looking to add. Potentially at Collecticon might be a pickup. We'll see how that goes. It'll just be something I have my eye on, at Collecticon. So potentially looking to pick up that Dark Gyarados. And they all kind of go together for me, as kind of like a trio. So probably a Collecticon pickup is what I'm looking at. And then you're going to hear the same thing again. We're going to get right back into Lost Origin. Now, Lost Origin, possibly a little bit ahead of the curve. You can see right here on this last month, it is down. Same thing. Had explosive growth. Has to cool off. You see it with singles. You see it with sealed. When we get this level of explosive growth, people come in, they go, oh, I got those boxes. I'll sell them. And then there's some undercutting that happens, and the market cools off for a little bit. You can also see right here a lot of sales on February 13th, and you can see off of that the boxes are starting to come back up. From 338, 340, 339, whatever, 340 up to 350. So just a little bit of a bounce back. They were at 387 was the high, almost $400. So same thing. Lost Origin has a great chase card. It's from a very nostalgic era that people really look fondly upon the Sword and Shield era. It's out of print. You're not going to get reprints. You don't have to worry about that. So that's what's also great about Sword and Shield era. It's out of rotation. It's doing its thing. It's chilling. And same thing. Once again, so this might be on an uptick. It could continue to run up back to here. It could come up and go down. Like, I'm not saying that I know exactly what it's going to do. I just know that on a, like I said, on a 5 to 10 year period, you cannot go wrong with these boxes. You look at Evolving Skies, and then you go, okay, Lost Origin should be able to do this in theory off of that. And that's kind of where I look at it. It does seem like a no-brainer. Lowest listed right now from starred sellers, you're at 370 plus shipping, which would indicate that these boxes are probably moving up potentially. There's only 84 boxes on TCG Player right now. But that's Sword and Shield. Now, I did want to talk about some Scarlet and Violet stuff that is still available, that I still believe in as well. Scarlet and Violet base, believe it or not, it's probably the best base set we've gotten in a really long time. There are some great cards in here. There's great artwork in here. Now, this is a set that is available pretty much right now at or below MSRP, and that's kind of right now, if you're worried about reaching for investments, once again, 5 to 10 plus year period, I do believe that Scarlet and Violet base will perform well. You can get it at or below MSRP. You might have to hop over on eBay. You can get it at maybe a little bit below MSRP right now. The new MSRP is like 161. I think isn't it 161? Anyways, we're currently right there, 158 current market, and it is up 45%. Right? It's kind of, we've seen Shrouded Fable sell out. We've seen so many sets sell out because there's just, everyone wants Pokemon. This is kind of like the last thing that's available. I wouldn't really reach for above MSRP for some of those lower sets. This is one of those, it's not a top tier SV era set, but I do like it a lot. So SV base, I think, is another thing worth picking up. At or below MSRP, I wouldn't really go up too far above MSRP currently. Maybe just a little bit. But, picking up a sealed case, if you can afford it, I think that's a good play. Same thing with Paradox Rift. Now, Paradox Rift is technically above MSRP right now. Just a little, by a few bucks. Paradox Rift has the Groudon. It has a deep illustration rare set. There's a lot of IRs. It's a nice set. I like the Roaring Moon from it. It's a great set. And I like it maybe a little bit more than SV base, if I'm being completely honest. And this is just a little bit above MSRP. You probably can pick these up on eBay, probably at or below MSRP as well. So another thing, I think it's kind of a no-brainer if you're looking to get some sealed investments for the Scarlet and Violet era. I don't think you can go wrong with SV base and Paradox right now. I know that they're the last sets, and I am acknowledging that they are not the top tier sets of the era, right? This is not 151. This is not Paldean Fates. This is not, insert whatever set you want to here. But I do think that they still are solid pickups at these prices, right? Pretty much at or below MSRP. I do think that that is a good pickup as well. And then the last one, we talked about this recently. This is the Pokemon Center. You could probably pick this set up. Once again, you don't have to pick it up on the Pokemon Center. But I do think that Temporal Forces is still a good buy as well. It's the same thing, right? Maybe not the strongest set, but it has some great artworks in it. You can pick it up at MSRP right now on Pokemon Center. You could probably pick it up cheaper on eBay. But if eBay starts to rise and the Pokemon Center is the only one available, usually once a set sells out on the Pokemon Center, it does run. So keep in mind that if Temporal sells out on the Pokemon Center, we'll probably see the boxes run to 170, 180 fairly quickly. That tends to be what happens. That's not a guarantee, but I do like Temporal Forces. I do like Stellar Crown as well. But between these two, I would probably lean Temporal. I think Stellar has some great cards in it, but I think Temporal might be, from the investing standpoint, if I take my personal collecting emotions out of it, Temporal might be have the edge. So there are still good investments to be had. It's just not as plentiful and not as easy. And also those are some cards I'm picking up, some singles, some Gyarados cards specifically. And then we have, a little bit of the news of the pack arts being announced as badges for an event, which is kind of weird, but I'll take it. It doesn't matter how we get the news is the news. So with that Destined Rivals set being kind of split between like Team Rocket and then Cynthia and Ethan and the good guys, I do kind of like that. Like, I can vibe on that. You know, the good fighting the bad, destined rivals, obviously, and you know, so they're going to collide. So I do think that that can work from a set perspective. So I'm kind of excited. I mean, I was always going to be excited about it. As a Ho-Oh fan as well too. I do like Ho-Oh. I do think that that SIR Ho-Oh is going to be nice. So we'll see what else we get. I'll make videos whenever we know more about what cards are going to be in those sets. So make sure you're subscribed if you're this far in the video and you're not already subscribed. Obviously, you enjoyed the content enough to get through this long. So daily videos for Pokemon collecting and investing. But yeah, I think that's all I got for you guys in this one. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Yeah, that's it. And remember, it was never a phase.